So first, Dr. Margret Vonholdt-Wenker. Is that your married name now? Then I suppose.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would just like to thank you and for taking the time for speaking to me about your research. And yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's something that not that long ago I thought I was the only one, and I just started posting some stuff on TikTok and Instagram and stuff like that of what I've been up to, and I really struggle with the idea that of just being a little odd, you know what I mean, and like
Hmm.
going against the convention. And then after just from posting it, people making comments saying that hey, we do it over here too, and that's when I started learning more and more about what's actually out there, and uh, and that's also how we got connected, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's really nice.
Right, yeah. And then so you guys have been doing it for years, and it's like I guess like most things, knows that in the past too, Europe seems to be far ahead of where we are here in North America with uh, getting on trends, I suppose.
Hmm.
Basically, I just want to start with like where are you from and where were you born?
Yeah, I'm Dutch. I'm from the Netherlands, and I grew up like north from Amsterdam, super small town. Always had a big love for animals. So I studied animal sciences in Wageningen University, and after that, I wanted to continue working on research in like cow welfare. And I think one of the biggest ethical issues in dairy is the early separation. So it was very nice to work on that.
So when you were a kid, you said you had an interest in animals. When do you think that started?
I have pictures when I was like 2 years already kissing cows on their noses. So
Like
very early.
cows. Okay. So did you have some family or neighbors that were farmers, or did you grow up on a farm?
No, we lived in a small town, so we were surrounded by many farms.
As much the same with me. Yeah, I grew up on a dairy farm, of course, but
Hmm.
yeah, the same thing. Ever since I was a kid, I was just super into animals, and always knew I wanted to do something with animals. Just wasn't quite sure what at the start.
And now you run a farm on yourself.
That's right. Yeah, I actually went to university first because I wasn't 100% sure if I wanted a farm. When I was younger, I knew for sure, but then as I was getting later in our high school, then I started considering maybe becoming a veterinarian.
Oh yeah.
So then that's when I went to university and did my undergrad in just general biology with the intentions of applying to vet school. But then, and I actually did a little bit, I actually helped out with some research there as well when I was doing university. And yeah, but then as I was getting ready to apply to vet school, that's when I changed my mind.
I had the same that I also wanted to apply for veterinary medicine, but then it felt more like solving the symptoms and not really the causes of issues in farming. So I felt like animal science was a better choice for me.
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
So how close did you get to applying to vet school? Like when did you change your mind?
I think when it came to the point where you had to hand all kinds of paperwork in, and where I also joined some veterinarians like for a day to see what the practical work was like, and I was a bit shocked because I had a bit romantic view on it.
Right, right, right.
And then I also heard like visiting the University of Utrecht where you can study that you have to like mandatory do uh, um, like internships in slaughterhouses and so on. And then that was for me the line like, oh God, no.
Right.
I'm not ready for that. So,
Yeah.
and also like when you hear about those pandemics among like animals, like now with avian influenza and so on, that you have to kill all those sort of healthy animals as
Yes.
well. And like, oh God, no,
For the greater good.
no.
So then you said you decided to go down toward doing the more like the research route, and then like as far as animal science, you still had lots of options. So then, what drew you towards the dairy side?
It's my big passion for cows. They're just such nice creatures. They're adorable.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
Making their lives a bit better, that was yeah, what I always wanted to do.
we used to said there. That's actually what I'm trying to do now too. Is basically improve the lives of farm animals. As with after like farming on the dairy side for quite a while, we built a new barn, and then
Hmm.
the cows started doing a lot better. And then after that started to plateau, and then I started getting a little I'm not sure what the word is. Is it I almost felt discontent, you know what I mean? Because like when we were in the old barn, I saw the cow suffering in this old facility, And then I was always looking towards, okay, soon I can make their lives better. If I build this new barn and we do it for cow comfort and everything else, the cows will do better, and the cows will be healthier. And that always got me really excited. And then after that kind of that phase was over and the barn was built and the cows were doing better, well, then there was no longer, like, my mind was more about like all like the nitpicking, all the small details of how do I maximize profits and how do I decrease costs. And it's like, it just wasn't fun for me thinking,
Mm-hmm.
worrying about constantly all the small little details. And then so then I thought, well, I want to get back to trying to improve their lives. And that's what so I got the idea of Moral Eats as basically because there's nowhere for me to sell our animal products, right? It'd be dairy or anything else. There's no market for it for just based on animal welfare.
Right.
I thought, well, if I create a company that can become that market where farmers can sell animal products based on animal welfare, and then people who are concerned about animal welfare could go to like an online store and buy food from animals that had like an amazing life. So that's like the idea of
That's
Moral Eats. And then
cool.
yeah, so that's basically the road that I'm going down right now, is trying to find ways of making Moral Eats grow and find customers and other people that are interested in it. And so that's when, like, we never really used to do anything other than dairy, but now we've gone into grass-fed beef and
Mm-hmm.
pastured turkeys, and we sell some pork and we also sell wild caught seafood.
Wow.
If that works out well, then I eventually want to do like ethically sourced or dairy.
Yeah.
So then that's when I started experimenting with like leaving the calves with their mothers, and got down this giant rabbit hole of which got me in touch with your research, and which was actually very comforting for me, because knowing that it's not just a crazy idea that I had, is actually like true research done on the subject.
Definitely, I think especially in Europe, it's like hot topic at the moment, especially in research and also among the consumers. You hear more and more like worries about this early separation and can things be done differently. But there's, yeah, honestly, I mean, in the Netherlands, I think we have about 50 farmers from the 17,000 that leave cows and calves together. But
Right.
also in like Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, it's like hot topic. I think in France, there are also some farms uh, who are doing this. But how was it for you? Like, it's a big change.
It was several stages where along the way where I kind of had my mind blown, you know what I mean? Because I just thought, well, I'll just leave some cows in with my fresh cows and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of expecting them to like self-destruct or some way or another. I had no idea what I was expecting, but it was such a ingrained belief that I can't do it, that I just when I tried it and they did well, they were healthy and they grew really big. I was like, it blew my mind. So then from then on, I just been taking baby steps, because I'm still worried about keeping them healthy. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's only a step forwards for the dairy industry if we're able to keep the calves healthy while we do it. But
Yeah.
for me, it's the whole process has been very surprising, and
Mm-hmm.
and I understand, like, I'm not the first person to try it, and people have tried it in the past and kind of gave up on it. And but I really feel like there's been a lot of changes in the dairy industry, a lot of improvements in animal housing. Like, there's lots of farmers who house calves indoors already, and they found ways with ventilation systems to keep them healthy. So then, if we combine that and then just put it inside of a dairy barn, um, I feel like it could really work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's also lots of other concerns that people have. Like, for me, the main concern is keeping the cows healthy. But I've heard lots of people saying how just dairy cows are terrible mothers. And I've had experience like that too.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I kept them together and just see what happens, all of a sudden these cows that are usually kind of indifferent become amazing mothers across the board. One after another, one cow after another became really good mothers. And even like young animals, first calf, great mother.
Mm-hmm.
And and I had trouble explaining it until I came across, I think actually your first paper that you sent me,
Mm-hmm.
about the cow's motivation to be with a calf. So would you mind explaining that and saying, like, describing what you were looking at for that study and what you found?
Yes, sure. I actually did that research in Canada at UBC.
I
And
saw
the
that.
idea was, yeah, the idea was to better understand the motivation of cows to reunite, because motivation generally tells something about what matters to the animal, what it finds important, because they have to work, in this case, to get access to their calf. And the more you're willing to work, apparently, the more important it is for you, or for, in this case, for the cow. So we included 3 different groups. So we had cows directly separated from their calf, like standard practice. And they would only see their calf in the test. So the test situation was like after milking. And then the cows would have to push the weighted gate that we created. They were trained for that during the dry period. And after that, they had to like open this gate to get to their calf. And then they would have 2 minutes together. But especially the suckled cows were highly motivated. And it was also a little bit surprising because they had been milked. So it was not that there was other pressure or something motivating them to get to their calf. The calves were fed, so they were also not hungry anymore. But still, apparently the bond is much stronger when they were being suckled.
That's right, yeah. And that's exactly what I think explains what I found with our cows, is as soon as I let the cow stay together with the calf would suckle from the mom, and all of a sudden the mom would just transform into a great mom.
Mhm.
It really seems that the suckling seems to be quite important
Yeah,
for making that happen.
but I think it's also one of the issues with the weaning and separation and later on. I don't know how you are doing it or how long you have them together and then for
Yeah,
the
actually,
separation.
I'll get to that. Actually, I found
Okay.
I came up with a solution, I think, by accident at first, but
Mhm.
actually, I think is it works better, I think, even than what you tested. But first,
Mhm.
you have a before your paper on weaning, you have a paper in
Mhm.
between yet. I
Yeah,
want to get to that first. So
sure,
that
sure.
so you basically compared calf and cow behaviors um, with partial contact and full contact.
Mhm.
Basically, I just wanted to figure out from your point of view what you saw as the difference as far as behavior, and where do you think partial contact could fit in the dairy industry?
Mhm.
Because
Yeah,
like, it
the
seems like from an animal welfare point, the full contact is what would be ideal. So then, if that's the ideal situation, does the partial contact still fit somewhere?
yeah, that's indeed a very good point. I also think that full contact can offer a lot for animal welfare, but at the same time, we hear a lot from farmers that they are very worried about the milk loss from like the milk that is being suckled by the calves and they can no longer sell. So they worry about the economy of the farm, and also they don't like the calves to be in the herd. So among the cows, because they have issues with collecting cows for milking, and also escapes or accidents in the barn with the calves. So that's why we thought, can we come up with this partial contact where the calves are being housed in their own little pen, and it's next to the cows, and the cows can put their head over the wall to interact, as sort of an in-between solution that the cows can still express their maternal behavior, and maybe it is like a compromise for the farmers to make
Right.
it a bit more practical. But when you look at the interactions, they are much lower. I think the calf is less accessible, but also naturally, the calf would be becoming the initiator of contact after some weeks. And I think this is also what we saw, that the cows were becoming less and less interested over time. So naturally, the calf would take over the contact. And this is what actually happened in the full contact group, where the
Okay.
calves were among the cows.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
perhaps there was also housing issues. I mean, the housing was also not optimal
Right,
for
right, right,
them to reach the calves. Yeah.
right. Yeah, because we have our cows. Like they have we have like a fresh cow pack where we kind of have the cows. They kind of adjust to the milking robots that we have, and then when they get adjusted, then they go move out to the main herd, and
Mhm.
it was so like in that fresh cow pack, that's where we have our calves. So it's kind of
Okay.
a smaller, more segregated area where the calves can have full contact with the mothers is how we have
Mhm.
it set up. And then
What's your group size?
so the main group is for say around 200 animals.
Okay.
But then the fresh cow group, it could fit 5 comfortably,
Mm-hmm.
more if need be. It's a pack area, so you can put more animals in there, but I think 5 is ideal.
Right.
So we're not doing it with all of our calves. I'm doing test groups of 5 calves,
Mm-hmm.
and then and every sometime we wean those off, and then I bring the next 5 in.
Right.
And then in the meanwhile, all the ones that all the other cows that calve, they go out to the calf hutches in pairs, so they're not completely isolated from all the
Okay.
animals.
Mm-hmm.
They're paired up into a calf hutch, and that's basically the 2 systems that I am comparing.
I think that's already a big step to pair house them. I'm happy
Yeah,
to hear that.
yeah, that's already unusual. That's right. And but it almost surprised me because the calves in the calf hutches, they actually have more sick events than the calves that are in with their fresh cows at the moment.
Mhm.
So and yeah, so they're surprisingly healthy, and when they do get sick, they almost self-medicate.
Right.
Like so,
Mhm.
like it has to, like we watch them closely. If it gets too severe, then we'll intervene with electrolytes and stuff like that.
Right.
But one of the best things that we can do in our calf hutches is when the calf is sick, is just feed them lots of small meals,
Mhm.
which is exactly what the mom and the calf are already doing. So it's so a lot of the, like it's way less work with these sick calves because a lot of them self-medicate
Mhm.
and they get better on their own.
I think it also helps that the cow is around to stimulate them to drink, because sometimes you also see when they're very sick from diarrhea that they just don't get up and get a big apathic. But I think it also helps for having the cow around who then licks them and stimulates them to drink.
That's right.
Can imagine.
That's
Yeah.
right. But so then you did another paper on basically comparing the health of the cow and health of the calf in these
Mhm.
systems, correct?
Yeah.
So what were your findings as far as the main health concerns? And is there anything in there that you found surprising?
Um, well, first of all, there are a lot of worries about mastitis among the cows when they're
Yeah, that
being
was
suckled.
actually a big worry for me too, because I thought, oh,
Yeah,
the teat canals are going to be open all the time, and then it'd be lots of
but
opportunity for mastitis.
yeah, from what we've seen on our farm, there were no issues, like not more issues in the full contact group compared to the others. So apparently, the cow health was not so much affected. I mean, not positively, but also not negatively. So we did not really see any differences there, which I think was surprising because some farmers actually claim to have less mastitis issues. But what was also like positively surprising is we also took blood samples from the cows to see their metabolic status, to check if they do not get a more negative energy balance from being suckled several times a day plus being milked twice a day.
Right.
But also here we did not see big effects from the suckling, so apparently it didn't bother them that much in that sense. And for calf health, yeah, we had to confirm your worries about keeping them healthy because we struggled. This was a farm who did it for the first time. And I think it takes time to adjust your farm and your management to keeping them healthy. I mean, we had also a group of about 10 calves, all different in age at some point. I think this is also a bit tricky.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because everybody always
It's
talks about how
already,
it's important to keep the age groups separate so that you don't transfer sicknesses from the older cows down to the younger ones.
yeah. And I think also our barn was a bit suboptimal. There was quite some drafts going through. So we got some lung problems among the calves. And although we were hoping to find less diarrhea issues, the diarrhea was not very different, the prevalence. But at the same time, we don't know whether it was infectious or just nutritious, because it can be that it was just liquid manure from suckling too much milk,
Right, right.
rather than
You
having an
said that the
infectious source.
scours were, you had more scours with the calves that are kept together with the mothers, or is it the same?
Was the same.
It's the same. Okay.
Yeah, but we also, at least that's what we didn't really record it, but we also had the idea that they needed less medicine. We hardly fed electrolytes there, whereas the other calves, almost all of them needed electrolytes to stay sort of healthy or to recover.
Right.
Whereas the ones in the full contact group, they most of the time could fix it on their own, so to say.
Right. So the
Yeah,
cases were the same, but then you needed basically less intervention.
yeah, yeah, indeed. But for the yeah, we still had quite some lung issues with like respiratory disease and sometimes thick navels as well. So I think it's really hygiene issues in that case.
Right, right. Yeah, so like I haven't had any issues with naval infections, but yeah, the pneumonia is something that I think is the main concern because the scours I realized is kind of yeah, I haven't found anything worse either
Hmm.
compared to the cows that are kept together or the cows that are separated into calf hutches. If anything, we actually have less scours with the cows because a lot of scours I think that we get are environmental scours that are in their calf hutches. And
Hmm.
and a lot of those environmental could come from the catfish itself or from the bottles,
Right.
those are our hands. And whereas the cows that are together with their mothers, we don't really need to handle them at all. They don't
Hmm.
drink except for the colostrum. The very first feeding, we still feed to the cows.
Yeah.
And then after that, we don't handle them at all. So I think it's basically the scours that are where issues that we're having in the calf hutches is coming from us one way or another.
Hmm.
Then we don't have to, that's no longer a problem.
Yeah, I also hear that a lot from farmers who actually leave them also together here in the Netherlands, that they actually have less health issues most of the time. And
With the
also with the
exception of
dairy.
pneumonia then?
Yeah, yeah, I think because I did my internship for an organic farming label and they also wanted to know what the dairy farmers were doing and thinking about the subject. So I interviewed a lot of them. And I think many actually claimed better health in general.
Okay.
And if there was diarrhea issues, it was from just drinking too much milk and not so much indeed infectious. But we also struggled with the pneumonia issues,
Right.
unfortunately. But I think with years of experience and maybe adjusting your barn, you can actually have better health among your animals. But it takes time, I guess,
Yeah,
and
you kind of got
experience.
to learn from each other, right? People.
Exactly.
So like I have my ideas of how I think I would design a barn ideal for ventilation wise to prevent pneumonia. But I'd like to
Hmm.
hear if you have any ideas of what would be ideal for for like the housing.
Yeah, from what I've seen on my farm when we did the experiment, there was some bedding issues that I think the bedding of for example, the free stalls is quite important for the calves, and also more drought protection. So in the Netherlands, we had this, I don't know how you actually call it in English, this kind of nets that you can put along your side of your barn when it's open, that it breaks the wind, sort of.
Oh, I've seen those too. Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen people design calf barns, and it's a net
Yeah,
that yeah, slows the wind down right by the curtain.
maybe maybe using more of this to create a more calf friendly environment.
Right, right.
Maybe also having those small hiding areas for the calves where they can have their own microclimate, sort of maybe with a small roof or something that they can.
So
um,
basically, you can almost have put calf hutches inside the pen with cows.
oh yeah,
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 indeed, something like this. But those are just thoughts. I think we still don't know what is the ideal barn for
yeah,
such a
yeah,
system.
yeah.
What are
Would
your ideas? Would you like to share?
I'd love to, yeah. I find it tricky because you want to have excellent air quality because it's the moist, stagnant air from the cows that the cows don't mind because well, they already have their immune system built up. But that's I think is what carries the bacteria and the viral infections that get the cows sick with pneumonia.
Hmm.
And so you need exceptional air quality. So it means lots of air turnovers, which means lots of airflow. But then, like you said, you need to do that without making it drafty. So it's a difficult balance to make, but you
Hmm.
need that. But to get like the as high air quality, there's two ways that I think that it would still work. And the real problem is not in the summer, at least for me, when I have all the curtains wide open and there's lots of air coming in and out, and it's warm air, there's no issue with pneumonia then. For me, I have more problems with pneumonia in the fall and in the
Hmm.
winter when all the curtains close and then there's no longer that same amount of airflow. So what I would think, there's two different options that I would like to pursue. Is one is that you have a cold barn, So basically a barn that's designed to freeze. You have all the water lines under the ground and heated water bowls.
Mm-hmm.
So then with that cold barn, then you can have lots of airflow farther away from the calves so it doesn't drop on the calves. But then you can still have enough air exchanges in the barn to keep the air fresh.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other system is actually something that we actually have in our heifer barn, because after they're done in our calf hutches, they come into our heifer barn at about 2 to 3 months of age.
Mm-hmm.
They're also still very susceptible to pneumonia. And then they're in the same barn together with these older heifers. So we actually put positive pressure air tubes in the barn, just that put fresh air just where those young calves are. And then from there, because it's a positive pressure, the fresh air moves from the young calves away towards the older animals, as opposed to the other way around. And that barn actually still stays above freezing in the winter, because it's not the entire barn that's ventilated this way, that's pushing in fresh, cold air from outside. It's only where these young, susceptible calves are. So what I would imagine is just have like a regular ventilated barn for your milking cows, and then right where the calves are together with the mother, basically the fresh cow pack, put positive pressure air tubes for the winter, and basically just have like the minimum amount of fresh air always circulating where the calves are.
Mm-hmm.
And then I really do think like it works quite well in our heifer barn. So I think that would work with our fresh cow pack as well.
That sounds very interesting, yeah, and promising.
Yeah, and then with like so like the cold barn is the downside is that your barn will freeze and it's not as fun to work in a frozen barn. But the calves would be healthy, I think. But then the other system with the positive pressure air tubes, I think you almost get the best of both worlds, where it's like you can still work in a comfortable barn, and then you don't have to worry about all the manure freezing and difficulty managing the
Right.
animals. But you still have enough fresh air right where it's truly needed, right where the baby calves are.
Mm-hmm.
So so basically, that's basically if I ever get a chance to build a new barn, the expansion onto our current facility, I want to build a barn where it's just like a fresh cow pack and a dry cow pack that's bigger, and have milking robots in a fresh cow pack, and have that fresh cow pack ventilated separately with positive pressure air tubes, or have that section of the barn be a cold barn. And then from once the calves wean off and the cows wean off the calves, they then move to the main herd, where the barn that we currently have.
Right. Yeah, I think that might also be a good solution, to have the calves sort of separately from the main herd in a more secluded area in a way.
Yeah, and then it's also, I think the seclusion is also important, because we actually had one cow that was just acted really aggressively towards calves. Not intentionally aggressively, just really excitable. And then she would just run around and knock over calves, and she actually kicked a calf at one point. So then we were able to take that cow, like, okay, you go to the main herd early, and now you don't have to bother these calves anymore. So I think it's, for instances like that, it's also nice to have separate pens, separate groups.
Yeah, I also know a conventional farmer in the Netherlands who has a milking robot, and then there is a secluded straw pack after the robot. So with selection gates, the cows who are mothers in that case with a calf can go to the straw pack where the calves are being waiting for them. And then at some point he will bring all the cows back to the main herd. But then you also sort of force the cows to go to the milking robot first before getting to their calf, and not just stay in the straw pack because they're nice and cozy there and being suckled, but that he also still gets milk to sell. I think that was also quite a smart system.
Yeah, that's similar to how we have it set up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you also still have the rest of the lactation of milk to sell too. So it's and like the cows, like with like modern genetics and then high quality feed, the cows produce enough, I think, milk for 4, 5, 6 calves with the calf suckling. So it's yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a main concern of mine anyway.
So, but do you then have like one cow for several calves, or is every cow having their own calf?
So at the moment, I'm doing it where the mom and the calf stay together. So each cow
Right.
has their own calf.
Yeah.
And for like that until the calf and the cow get weaned off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so like I guess that weaning, I guess that brings you to your last paper. You tried some different systems for weaning off, and you made some progress. And then, so why don't you explain that, and then I'll tell you what my experience with weaning calves.
Yeah, we tried the most common ways that are currently used in practice in the Netherlands among the farmers who leave cows and calves together, just to see what happens there. So we either compared having a nose flap, so this is usually used for beef cows and calves to wean them off, where you clip the plastic flap in the nose of the calf. So they're abruptly weaned off milk and they still can be in contact with the cows. And we compared that to having a fence line system where the calf is being placed behind the fence, can still drink through the fence for the first week, and then we close the fence off so they can only see each other and smell and lick each other, but no longer calves can suckle. And in that sense, sort of gradually weaning them off the milk, because of course they can now only suckle if the cows comes by, otherwise they just have to wait. So it gets a bit more gradually. And then also the contact is maybe a bit more gradually slowed down before separating them completely. And we compared them to the partial contact group and the calves without any contact at all to see like terms of behavior, health, and growth, how they were doing. And I think overall the full contact calves were still more stressed compared to the others when it came to the weaning and separation process. But especially the weaning with the nose flap seemed to be more stressful. We found some of those pressure wounds inside the noses of the calves.
Right.
We had those flaps in for about 2 weeks, but still it's an undesirable side effect, I would say. And also the calves were growing less fast. So apparently the adjustment to the solid feed was a bit harder for them than for the others.
Right, right.
And surprisingly, the partial contact calves, they almost didn't seem to care. I mean, they were being fed by our animal caretakers, and they had less contact at some point, but they were behaving and growing similarly to the calves that were early separated. So somehow they didn't seem to be bothered.
Right, right. Okay, so like I must have misread your paper then, because actually what you're doing with the full contact, where you have the separate pen, that's what I have the creep feeder in the corner of our fresh cow pack, and there's just bars coming across, so the calves can still stick their heads through. And that's exactly basically what I did. I put the calves, I closed the gate, the calves stayed in there, and then the calves could only drink when the moms came up and wanted to feed them.
Yeah.
And then which was dramatically less. The calves couldn't go and drink whenever they wanted. They could only drink when the mothers wanted.
So you offered like a automatic milk feeder?
No, it's just so they basically went from having full contact with their mothers, and then they went into this pen where they could then only partially get access to their mothers whenever the mothers next to the pen, and then that's how they still got their milk. So they never got they were never fed milk replacer or milk. So I tried actually. I put a bucket in for the first several groups of calves that I was weaning off. I put a bucket where I was feeding water already, and I put milk in there. And the odd calf drank it, but most of them didn't even touch it. They just let it go cold and they'd leave it, and they complained and asked their mom to get some milk, and they drink out from the mom, but they wouldn't touch the milk that I put in the pen with them.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, what's the point in putting the milk in there then if they don't really want it? So then
they found similar results in other research, but they also did in UEC, where they also tried different weaning methods and offering like an automatic milk feeder next to the cow. Most of the calves also didn't touch it at all. They would just rather wait 12 hours for the cow to come by than getting some milk off the feeder.
Yeah, it must be more, the calf must be missing more than just the calories from the milk. It must be something around the act of suckling too, that they find comforting, or something that they're missing as well.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. But what is your experience so far? Like, are the cows restless or the calves at some point, or?
Yeah, actually, I even have it even before weaning. If the calf, like when they want to just hide out away from the cows, sometimes the calf will hide into this creep feeder. And I even had cows bawling at the calves to get out of there because they don't, yeah, it's like, so then even out, so when we do the weaning and we close the gate, the calves have to stay in there. The mothers are upset too, that's right. And so are the calves. It seems to help both of them when they actually stand next to the weaning pen and they can drink. It seems to make it better for the ones that are really upset. I still have some though that are like not all of them across the board are that attached. So we have some that you put them in the pen and then the cow doesn't mind at all. The calf still,
Mm-hmm.
so the calf will drink from the cow that does come up,
Mm-hmm.
but some mothers don't come up at all, even with the calves complaining.
I think we found that also through all my experiments, that there's such a big individual variation among the cows and how much they want to be with their calf or not, and how
Yeah,
good of a mother they are, basically.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they all, basically all of them meet the criteria of feeding their calf. Like they seem to all be good enough mothers that they'll feed their
Mm-hmm.
calf. But then some of them are like obviously to a much greater degree and get much more upset
Mm-hmm.
at any idea of being separate from their calf.
What age do you wean and separate them?
So I start separating and weaning at about 2 months.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then, and then at that point, then they have like partial contact, partial milk. So then, so that's like the process
Yeah.
starts at 2 months, and then it can, by the time I can actually take them out of that pen, they might be closer to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I do it in groups of 5. So as when the youngest is 2 months,
Yeah.
so the oldest one is older than 2 months, and then around 2 months is when I start, and around 3 months is when they're completely weaned off and they go to the heifer barn.
But that sounds pretty good. I would say that it's like quite gradual, but also that the calves still have their social group sort of staying together.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're so familiar with each other. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. In your opinion, then, like because there's much more distress at weaning when there's cows that have that maternal bond when they've
Mm-hmm.
allowed the calf to suckle. Do you think that increased distress at weaning is worth it to have that increase maybe in the natural behavior of feeding their own calf and forming that bond? Do you think like the plus side is worth the negative side of the stress at weaning?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer.
Right.
Also because we still don't really know like what is the best way to wean and separate in terms of the least amount of stress. But like, let's say personally, I would say it is worth it because it's quite a long period when they are together and they can suckle in a natural way. The cow can express her maternal behavior. The calves can socially develop better. And this is for like in your case also 2 to 3 months. And then there's like a few days where there is some sadness and some stress going on. But I think that time before was actually very beneficial for both of them in
That's
that
right.
sense. But I think we have to work harder still to find the best way for weaning and separation because it is such a difficult time frame in terms of the welfare during cow-calf contact. But I also think that we should not underestimate the effect of early separation. There is also still a lot of things we don't know about the effect of the emotional state of the animals there. How about postpartum depression, for example, is a very new, maybe even
Yeah.
extreme topic to touch, but it happens among mammals, and why not in our dairy cows who are being early separated from their calf? Maybe we trigger something. I mean, there's so much we don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, I do
Um,
know that like the oxytocin, the extra
mhm,
oxytocin release from suckling the calf, that's where like a lot of positive emotion comes from the hormone oxytocin. So
right.
like maybe like they're more neutral when they're separated, but they're much more positive
Hmm.
when they are allowed to stay together.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not
I
sure how
think
you measure postpartum depression. I'm not sure if you can measure that with cortisol levels or stress hormones. I'm not sure if be interesting to see in the future, I suppose.
I had a colleague who tried to use it, like look at biomarkers to see emotional states in cows, but it was very difficult indeed. But we have some like tests, behavioral tests that we can do, sort of like judgment bias tests.
Uh,
So you basically ask the cow, is the glass full or is the glass half empty?
right?
And they have to make a decision when you offer them in calves, for example, milk, and for cows, like a treat, like concentrate or something, compared to sort of punishment, like an air puff. And then there comes this ambiguous cue, and they have to guess, like, okay, based on this color, because they were trained with colors or with sounds, do I think I will get a treat or will I get a punishment? And if
Right.
they choose, they think, okay, I guess I get a treat, and they access, for example, a certain part of the pen, then it means they're more optimistic.
Right.
And the other side would be more pessimistic. So that is like tryouts to investigate moods and emotional states in animals. But
You have to be so creative to test it in a reliable way, right?
yeah, that's the thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like in the discussions part of your paper, you also discussed the natural weaning, what that would look like from animals in the wild, and about and the amount of distress that like that those calves would feel in a natural setting. Do you recall what I'm referring to?
Yeah. I because I also think like doing things in a natural way is not always necessarily better, because also nature can be harsh. And when it comes to weaning uh, in like more natural herds, there's also stress among the calves, because suddenly the mother starts rejecting them, maybe even kicking them. And also then we see distress. So it's not necessary because we move to a more natural system by leaving them together that it's necessarily bad, because there comes in this weaning stress, because this is also what happens in a natural setting, where the cow starts to reject because she is pregnant with the next um, calf. So in that sense, we should not maybe want to go for a system where there's no stress at all, because it is also um, happening in natural systems. So it's maybe something that belongs to weaning. I think also for our human babies, they also don't always like to wean off breastfeeding.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
But we can of course try to do it as gradual as possible, and maybe also at a more suitable age, because we wean calves rather early in the dairy industry. So maybe if we would feed them a bit longer on milk, it may also be less stressful, because it comes more to the natural age where they are more used to solid feeds and more socially independent of the cow already.
Yeah, I've given that some thought too. Like, why wean at 2 months? And I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
mostly the main reason why the deadline has been 2 months in the past has been for economical reasons, the
I
cost of
guess.
place or the cost of milk. But from the calf's perspective, what's ideal? And if I wonder about that, um, it's tricky because dairy cows give an unnatural amount of milk.
Mm-hmm.
So if you
True.
have a wild animal, a wild ruminant, or a beef cow, they'll peak milk production around 2 months, and then the milk production will start to decrease, which is basically around the time when we will, like, I start weaning off my calves, is right around
Mm-hmm.
when they hit around 2 months. That's when I start putting, they still drink milk, just like the beef cow that's now starting to tapering off their milk
Mm-hmm.
production. They still give milk, but then from then on out, it's steadily less. So
Yeah.
like it seems like the natural the start date for the natural weaning process is not that far off. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
naturally the weaning process would just take months, whereas with
Exactly. Yeah.
with taking it's like a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But like how can you best give wean off cows in the most natural way when cows give such an unnatural amount of milk, where even at dry off just before they're having the next calf, they're still giving so much milk that they could feed fill a calf's stomach, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
I think
electric.
that's one of the biggest issues indeed that you touched there, this unnatural amount of milk. The calves are also in the candy store all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, and they just also love to drink the milk. I think that's also one of the issues why it's so stressful for them.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the only thing I can think of is like if you have the weaning pen next to like the main group kind of thing, so that like or like have like another group of calves in the dairy barn where they can now still have partial access to cows that decide to walk up next to them, and then basically draw that period out where they're in this weaning pen for a month, 2 months, I don't know, where
Mm-hmm.
they can drink whenever the cows decide it's okay for them to drink.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not
Yeah.
sure if there's any benefits to doing that.
Yeah. I also know there are systems in, for example, Switzerland and in Germany, where they only leave the calves with the cows after milking for like 10 minutes just to suckle some milk. So maybe this could also like limiting the duration of time that they can suckle maybe. But I think, yeah, I honestly don't know how to deal with this. It's so difficult.
Right. You almost need more people thinking about it, more people trying.
Yeah.
And then like that's how a lot of the improvements in animal housing has happened over the years. Like when we were building our new barn, we toured countless farms and other barns to get ideas of how we should build ours, so that we can get all, and then like
Hmm.
and we sometimes we wouldn't really find anything new, but quite often we go to a barn and then we say, oh, I take that little tidbit and add that to our plans. And then once you do hundreds of barn tours, you come up with like the most modern idea of what's accepted as being the ideal barn. And if everybody keeps doing that, and they all keep learning from each other, then
Hmm.
I think that's how you can make the fastest improvements. And if it becomes more common to leave cows and calves together, I think farmers themselves would come up with lots of different solutions to minimize stress.
Yeah, I know that there are now a group of farmers in the Netherlands has launched sort of this online platform, like a website, where they give some tips and tricks on how to leave them together, what they did in their barn or for weeding and separation and so on. Because I think one of the issues with farmers who want to transform their farm to a cow-calf contact farm is that they are basically feeling on their own and they try to solve issues on their own, which is very difficult. Most of the times your vets cannot even help you because they also have no experience with such a system.
Yeah,
So I think
actually,
connecting
that's
farmers and sharing ideas and helping each other is like super useful to develop this kind of farming.
yeah. Yes, and some of us don't even agree with the whole concept of leaving cows and calves
Right.
together.
Hmm.
Actually, try to dissuade farmers from trying it
Yeah.
because for health concerns.
Hmm.
So yeah, like does not necessarily, and like no, and other vets too are very positive about it, and they really try to convince farmers to try as well. Like there's lots of different vets with different opinions, I suppose.
Hmm.
But yeah, so then from what I understand, then a lot of the research that you did was then used in Holland to come up with a program for actually selling milk in supermarkets, and selling milk from cows that are kept together with their calves as a separate brand.
It is indeed since this month is in the supermarket, one of the biggest supermarket chains here. You can buy this calf love, they call it milk,
Right.
where it comes from farmers who leave them for 2 to 3 months together. And then the farmers get like a premium price to sort of cover the milk loss and the extra expenses they had. So now they try to see what the consumer says about it and if whether they will buy it because it is even more expensive than normal organic milk. So it's
Oh,
quite a
is it?
price attached to it.
Right. It's
Yeah.
interesting that, like, I wonder what their reasoning is for the price points that they're putting it at. But have you heard anything about the popularity of it? If people are buying it?
Um, well, what I've heard so far is that it's not available in all the stores yet. So a lot of people like they want to buy it, but it's not available yet in their store. Others did find it. What I've heard from the initiator is that she also got a lot of contact from. She was contacted by farmers, like conventional farmers, who are actually being interested now in the system. Like, oh, can you tell me more about how I can leave my calves with their cows, and how this whole new marketing concept works and whether they can join. So I think it also stimulates farmers to think about shifting or
Yeah,
not and to find more information or yeah, at least some peers who they can discuss it with.
yeah, and that's like my belief too. Like once you can prove that there's a demand for it, I really don't think there'll be an issue coming up with farmers willing to supply it.
Mhm. But I honestly, from what I've seen, like over all the years that I worked on this topic, because it was not only in my PhD that I worked on it, I think the key is still like the key to success is still the internal motivation of farmers, like their inner motivation to make it work. Because if the external drive is just money, I'm not sure if that's the key. Sort of, it's a long process and with ups and downs most likely. Because in this case, it's the whole herd. Like every cow has their calf for 2 to 3 months.
Yes.
So it's also rather small scale farms that can actually do this at the moment. Because I think having 300 calves running around 300 lactating cows is very challenging.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right.
So it's at the moment also still very much of interest for the small scale farms.
What's the largest herd that you've seen try it, or to actually have 100% of their calves and cows kept together for 2 months, 2 or 3 months?
I think it was about 60 cows.
60 cows. That's pretty
Yeah.
good herd still.
But then they would not have the male calves, for example. So it would only be the rearing calves that they would
Right,
get
right, right.
for the future
Yeah,
herd.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that dramatically decreases the numbers.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like for us, actually, I'm trying to, like with the more elites, I'm also trying to grow the meat side of it. So then actually all the bull calves are kept with their mothers too, then that I raise
Hmm.
for more elites. So then it'll be at twice the number of calves in that pen. So basically just as many cows calve, that's how many calves will
Hmm.
fly around in that pen.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right. So like my thing is like, okay, well, I can have 2 pens of 60, like one for each robot. Robots usually do well with 50, 60 cows. So then I can have 50 or 60 calves per pen, which is
Hmm.
still an awful lot of calves to monitor and basically make sure that they're healthy and doing well. So there'll still definitely be challenges when it comes to scaling it up.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think the main thing is like for me personally, the main thing is if I can keep the calves healthy,
Yeah.
then it'll be worth it for me.
But do you think so far you're on the right track,
Yeah,
or do you
I
still
like
struggle a lot?
that's right. Yeah, every single time I try to push the system a little further, the calves keep surprising me. Like the
Hmm.
very first time was mind blowing. Like I said, with just leaving the cows and calves together the very first time, I thought it would go horribly, and it went really well. And so now I've actually gone to the point where it's like it's constant in and out. There's constantly calves in there, so I'm really saying like if there's constant cows going in and out, there'll be a disease pressure that builds up, and I wanted
Hmm.
to kind of see how the system would hold up to that.
Yeah.
And there's things that we're doing to counteract it. So actually, this year we started composting our fresh cow pack. So basically, we aerate it only once a day at the moment, and then we cultivate it with a cultivator, let the air come in, and then it makes it all aerobic, it composts it, and then there's more competition as far as bacteria and viruses,
Hmm.
and you don't have the same disease pressure, basically the same disease causing bacteria pressure uh,
Hmm.
in and around these calves. So that's how I'm counteracting it, the fact that there's constantly in and out calves. And yeah, it's still going really well. And I'm actually hoping this will be like we're going into the first winter of doing the
Hmm.
compost, and I'm hoping that with the compost that doesn't release ammonia the same way as a regular manure pack does. So, and the ammonia is irritating to the lungs. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that it'll actually help with pneumonia as well.
Hmm. Keep me up to date how things
Yeah,
are going.
I'd love to. Yeah, that's right. I absolutely will. And yeah, like, and basically I'm keeping everybody up to date because I'm posting it and trying to make a video every single day on Instagram and TikTok, and then it goes over to
Nice.
Facebook, and I put it on YouTube as well. And yeah, basically make it so there's things out there for other people to learn from, and also for people to realize that this is an option, for consumers to realize that this could be a potential product
Yeah,
that
yeah.
they could have in the future, just that there is that demand. Because like you said, like the just being paid for it is not enough. The farmers want to do it, but also the
Mhm.
farmer just wanting to do it is not enough either. I think you need both.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so like because there are costs involved to doing it, and farmers, they need to be able to feed their families and pay the bills, and bills are
For
increasing
sure.
crazy with inflation and everything else. So
Mm.
that stays top of mind, and it's also like the farms that are more profitable, they're also the ones that grow. So like going forward in the future, that's the ones that are more profitable, are the ones that have a bigger impact on how the entire industry is raising animals.
Hmm.
So
That's true.
so like that's what, like with more elites, I'm trying to make it well. So first, more elites, the first the thing is like I can try finding customers on a smaller scale with the grass-fed beef and everything else. And if I can find enough customers for that, then I can eventually also build a new dairy barn and provide the milk for that business.
Hmm.
And then if the demand keeps growing, well, then I can start saying like, hey, the people are interested. People want to buy this product and they're actually willing to pay a premium for it. And then I can like go to the other farmers that are interested and are motivated to do it as well. That hey, like we can pay you a premium for your milk. And then that's how I really think it's a movement that could really grow,
Mm-hmm.
basically by taking advantage of supply and demand.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I think it's really great that you're raising awareness on this topic, because so many people don't even know about early separation or about the option of leaving them together.
No, and I was in that boat. Like I had no idea.
Mm,
And
yeah.
the amount, like it really, most people probably wouldn't understand, but it took a lot out of me just to that first time when I put the calf and just left it there. Like it took, like it was such a big step for me to take. And then but once I took that step, like because I thought nobody else had, like people have done it in the past and it went horribly, and nobody, the veterinarian recommended I not try it, and they kind of rolled their eyes at me and stuff like that. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
it was it definitely was a big step for me to take. So it's like, so like if people can see that it's been done before and it actually is working for some people, it wouldn't be nearly as big of a step just to see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. I certainly will. And yeah, and like and your work as well has been very beneficial for me too. Like the paper you sent me, I read through it and it explained some of the things that I've been seeing
Mm-hmm.
as far as like why that's the case, especially with like the mothering ability of cows, like why all of a sudden they're actually pretty decent mothers. And 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 like also like I looked at some of the references that you posted that you had in your paper, some of the during the discussions and stuff like that, and it was like it surprised me how much research has really been done on the topic. It's all mostly in Europe, of course, like where you're working. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, it's still very reassuring that it's a trend that's going to continue growing. That's worth pursuing.
Definitely. Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty natural close to our discussion. Um, So yeah, thanks again for taking the time and with speaking with me and also being patient while I try to figure out all of the technical issues and trying to record our discussion. It was
No,
very
it was a pleasure. It was really nice also to hear your experiences and that you're one of the pioneers in the North America side
that's right.
doing this. And I'm happy that my thesis was useful. And yeah, if you have any more questions or you want access to papers, just let me know. Maybe I can help out.
Oh, I will absolutely take advantage of that because I think you have to have some sort of membership to get to download papers
Yeah.
like that. Like I can only get the ones
Mm-hmm.
that are freely available.
Mm-hmm.